organized about tefillah?
Sure. He never used to daven. He only harmonized. Daven for the Yomid, I mean.
Okay, let's see. Did he have a good voice? Was he into singing?
Yeah, very much so.
But yes, you're right. I know that I think back. He never done it for them.
No.
But he always helped the fellow. Very interesting. Okay. Hamuder hano mechaverot. If one was muder hano from his friends. I just want to quickly review what we learned yesterday. Yesterday we learned about there's three ways to express an Isser Hana when one wants to Aser his. So first we learned that technically someone does have the ability to make something that he owns Aser to somebody else, and the Isser should survive his ownership. So even after he's mafker it, it will remain Aser. We saw it in our Mishnah when we're Asering payers and they become Hefker by Shemitah, the Isser remains. We also saw it by someone Asering his house. He says Bayzeh instead of Baysi. We know that structurally it could happen. Technically, it could happen. You could put an Isser on your chayfetz that will survive your ownership. The question that had to be clarified was what do each expression means. So we also took on that everybody holds, both Rav and Shmuel as well as Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, they both agree that if you say nechasi alecha, my nechasim should be also to you, there my intention is that it should only be also to you while it's my nechasim. Everybody agrees to that. So if someone says nechasi alecha, come Shemitah, those payers will not be usher to you. Because I said nechasi alecha, the issue should only be while it belongs to me. If I said nechasim elu alecha, these nechasim, and in my articulation of the Isser, I never linked it to me. I never linked it to the fact that it belongs to me. I'm just talking about these nechasim should be usher. Everybody agrees that the Isser will survive even after it's Hefker, even after I don't own it anymore. And the Gemara said that's what Rav and Shmuel meant. Rav and Shmuel meant that in the case where you said nechasim elu, the Isser will survive and will remain even after it's Hefker. Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish said, if you said nechasi alecha, there I only mean while they're my nechasim, they should be usher. And surely if you say that these nechasim should be usher even after I'm after them, surely they remain usher even after I'm after them. And the final shot in the earlier Mishnah was if someone before Shvius assered his payers on his friend, Hamuder Hano Mechaver Lefnei Shvius, and we learned this is not when you said Nichsi Alecha. Rather, this is when you said Nechasim Elu or Aser, so the Isser is going to survive. And even when Shemitah arrives, the Isser will remain in place because you said Nechasim Elu. The second case of the Mishnah was Uba Shvius. What if he first made this nether on Shvius? Where at that time the pairs aren't his, so he can't make any Yisurim on something that's not his. Nevertheless, he still prohibits somebody from coming into his field, even though the Gemara tells us that a person has a right of access to take one's payers when Shemitah comes. So even though Shemitah is not actually mafker the karka, but Shemitah gives anybody the right to get the payers, even if that means entering your karka. Here, we don't allow him to enter the karka. The Gemara said for two reasons. One reason is because he might linger. He might linger and stay past the amount of time he needs to get the payers, which means he's going to overstay his welcome, and then he's going to violate the nether. And the other pshat the Gemara said is we're talking about payers that you can access from outside the field. But of course, he's allowed to eat the payers because when the person made the nether, the payers didn't belong to him, and I cannot aser somebody else's payers on anybody. Okay. So that was the most kind of the Gemara that we answered there.
when somebody asks me, right? He says,
I can't answer you. I can answer my payers to you.
Right.
Okay.
so then what is the person over when he goes, when the person that gets answered?
So that was a whole trial of the Rishonim. Who is over the Loyachel? If I feed you my payers, am I over the Loyachel? Or that there's a Shiloh if you're over it. There's a Shiloh who is over the nether. There's actually a Shiloh in the Rishonim.
So I should have the mensch the Nesa, if he takes it by himself,
There's a sheet that the Nesser doesn't have any problem. He didn't say anything. How could you have the Loyachel Devorah on the Nesser?
right.
So there's a Shiloh about it. So that I don't want to get into that now. We'll do that afterwards. But there is a Shiloh who is over.
Number two, I push one, give it out. So if somebody does that, a balabus after the uni on the steel,
Right.
that they're always on the still by the day who knows the lack. It's the eight time about the scarce of the other mention.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Malucha is that if you block the field from other people, you're not allowed to take yourself.
Are you talking about on Shemitah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if he asks somebody else, if they're on himself, he's going to allow.
I hear. Okay, so to more about it. Hamud or Hanoah mechaver. Someone is not allowed to have Hanoah from his friend. He made it nether, the mother made it nether, but someone is not allowed to have Hanoah. So the law is, if I cannot have Hanoah from you, lo yashilenu. I cannot lend you something. But the Mishnah says another chiddush. V'lo yishal mimenu. I'm sorry. If I can't have Hanoah from you, it's possible that I can't borrow from you. When I borrow from you, I'm having direct Hanoah. But I'm not even allowed to lend to you, which is going to require explanation. Lo yelavenu. I'm not allowed to lend you money, but the lo yil from mimenu. I can't borrow money from you. Again, we're going to have to understand what's the problem with lending money. I understand why you can't borrow. And v'lo yimker lo, you're not allowed to sell to him. V'lo yikach mimenu, and you're not allowed to buy from him. So this is, of course, going to require explanation. And the Gemara jumps right into it. But we're not going to learn the Gemara because the Gemara's girsa is different from the Ran's girsa. So I'm going to read the wording straight out of the Ran. I understand why I cannot borrow from somebody who I'm not allowed to have enough from. I'm not allowed to buy from somebody who I'm not allowed to have enough from. I'm not allowed to borrow a chayfetz from somebody who I'm not allowed to have enough from. Because I'm benefiting when I borrow money from you, when I borrow a chayfetz from you, or when I buy from you, that we're going to need to focus on a little bit more. I'm benefiting. So we're going to get into that too. Ella, if it's a heter ishka, by the way, it's not called borrowing. So if it's a halva, it means there's not going to be interest involved. Ella lo yashilenu v'lo yilvenu v'lo yimker. Why I can't lend to you? Where's there a benefit to me? Why I can't lend you money or lend you a chayvus? There's no benefit to me. V'lo yimker, or I can't sell to you. My kameshani minei. In what way am I benefiting? Nearly Zoktaran, very important. The mashmalei, because right off the question you're going to ask, I don't understand. If we're making an assumption that when I sell to you, I'm having no benefit, didn't we learn that whenever you buy or sell something from somebody, both the moicher and lekech have a benefit? So what's the Gemara asking? I don't even know. Because the Gemara is asking on mechir also. So therefore, Zoktaran must be speaking bisvina charifa. You know what the Mishnah is talking about? You know what you're not allowed to sell? You're not allowed to sell a hot item because you're giving hana to the buyer by selling a hot item. You don't need him. You could sell it to anybody. So that's what the Ran wants to assume now. And that's why the Gemara has a kasha. When I sell to you, I'm not benefiting from you because I don't need you. I could sell it to anybody. Technically, we could have just as easily learned that we're speaking about dead merchandise, and then the kasha would have been, why can't I buy it? Because when I buy it, I'm not helping you at all. Right? When I buy it, I'm not having enough. I'm sorry, I'm helping you. When I buy it, I'm not having enough from you at all, because I could buy it anywhere. Right? So depending on what type of product we're talking about, if it's hot merchandise, then the buyer's having the hana. And if it's dead merchandise, then the seller's having a no. For some reason, the Gemara is assuming that it's the buyer having a no and not the seller, and that's why it must be assumed that the type of product we're talking about is Zvina Charifa. Inami, or another thing that the Mishnah could have assumed was Zvina Mitziyasa, or why couldn't the Mishnah could have been understood that it's speaking about a regular sale where they both benefit, and we could have omitted the Mechira part from the question. You still have a question: is why can't I lend to you? Why can't I lend the chavis to you or lend money? Because how am I benefiting by doing that? And the Gemara could have been happy with just asking a question on those two cases and leaving Mechira out of this, because Mechira technically there is anabo. Mishum Svira, the Gemara holds the Chehechi, the Bahani de Katani, Mekameha. The Gemara, when it's analyzing Pshat in the Mishnah, the Gemara says, let's look at the other examples of the Isurim that are not allowed in the Mishnah. And what are they? And in that case, the giver is not having a no. It's only the taker that's having a no. So that's why the Gemara automatically assumed that Mechir was a parallel case where only the buyer is having a no, but not the seller, because it's Zvina Charifa. It's a very popular item that the moicher can sell to anybody. But so the reason why we're assuming that it's a case where only the buyer has a no and not the seller is because it's parallel to the earlier two cases where only the person taking has the no, but not the person giving.
One person might have not know. He has to be worried about the other way around.
Well, either one. Look, I could say, Moti, you may not have enough for me, and you're the mudar, right? I'm the mother. Or you could say, I will not have enough for you. You're also the mudar.
One person said.
One person, for some reason, whatever was said, Reuben may not have enough from Shimon. So if Reuben may not have enough from Shimon, Reuben may not lend to Shimon, nor may Reuben borrow from Shimon. Reuben may not buy from Shimon. Reuben may not sell to Shimon. That's the Gemara's kasha. That's exactly the Gemara's kasha. What other life am I lending you? And for the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yosy bar Chanina. So the Ram's Girsa was in place of 4 lines of the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yosy bar Chanina, Kigoyin Shenadr Hanam Mizah Mizah. Surprise! You're going to say that you're not going to have enough from me. I won't have enough from you. It's a reciprocal enough. So therefore, it goes both ways. Simple enough. Abaya Omar Gzeira Lisho Mishum Lahashil V'chein B'chulu Gzeira. These are all Gzeiras. You're right. Really, the only thing that's usher is for me to borrow from you. If I borrow from you, I'm benefiting. Why can't I lend to you? Because if I lend to you, I might come to borrow from you, because that's how things work. No one wants to be a chazer and only go one way. So if I'm going to lend you things, then you're going to sort of want to lend back to me. And therefore, we want to chop it off completely. I'm sorry? Oh, that's right. I'm not a kelev that takes and doesn't give. Exactly. So we need to understand, in the first teretz, if it's Shenadra Nozam Mizeh, so what is the Chiddush in the Mishnah? It's Poshet, right? If I borrow from you, I'm having enough from you. And if you borrow from me, you're having enough from me. So that's what the Ran asks. What's the Chiddush? Near Zok the Hiligran is Sosam Long Krebel Lozer, Domer Viter Aser Bermuder Hano. This is very important. It's telling you a Chiddush, like Rabbi Eliezer, that Viter is Aser, meaning if I borrow something from you, right? Could I borrow your rake? Could I borrow your rake to rake up my lawn, right? That's something that's called Viter. Why is it called Viter? Just like we said, Teresa Sarago, I don't mind if somebody just steps on my property for a little bit. Well, if I'm going to lend you something, I'm not going to charge for it. That's called Viter. So it's once again reinforcing the fact that the Tana has shared with us many times that even this type of a hana you wouldn't charge for, would be usher for you to benefit when there's an Isra hana on you. In fact, we know that already. Tell me something I don't know. The Apple Gav, the Gvar saw someone Kavasai Beresh Pirkin. Kamash Malon, the Chol Haninami, Loy Grimi Viter, Vasir Levelesser. The Viter that we were talking about at the beginning of the Masechta are Viter of Drishas Regel in my property. The Chiddush of our Mishnah is that borrowing something from somebody, that's also called Viter. You might have thought that's a more significant enough. You're actually giving me something. Kamash Malone, that's considered viter because normally it's not charged for, and that's still going to be us. Okay. I think what I said was not accurate just now. Because the chiddush is you might think that it's less of a hana than just standing in my field. Kamash Malone, it's at least is that much hana, and therefore it will be usher. Okay. Abaye said, Gzeira lishal mishum lahashal. V'chein kulam gzeira. Zoktiran, the mishum haqli asrina nami lim karloi. Atulikach mimenu. That's why it's also to sell. It's also to sell to him a very hot item where I'm not having enough from him because I could sell it to anybody because we're afraid you'll buy from him a hot item. If someone says, I'm not going to have ano from any Jewish person. So the halacha is, you're allowed to continue to do business with Jews, but when you buy, you have to overpay. So then you won't be having ano. And when you sell, you have to sell for lower than the normal price, because once again, you will not be benefiting from your customers. What about if you made a nether that no Yisrael may have enough from you? Well, then you could only buy from a Jew if you underpay him, assuming you would find somebody to agree to that, the Mishnah said. And when we learned the Gemara earlier on that Lamed Aleph, we learned if it's a hot item, shari mudar limkar lemader v'loy grushim. If it's a very hot item, I'm allowed to sell it to anybody, even though I'm not allowed to have enough from him. You know why? Because I don't need him. If I'm selling to him, I could sell it to anybody. That's what we said before. How come you don't have a gzeira? How come you don't have a gzeira over there? Because of a Rambam Zal, the Rambam says, since he asked himself from doing business with any Jew, or not from doing business, but from having enough of any Jew, it would really be difficult if we made all of the gzeres on him. So therefore, we're not going to geyser on him. You guys read in the law, if we will geyser on him, that he's not allowed to sell to them, even though it's hot merchandise, like we're geyser over here. Could you imagine if every time you needed to go shopping, you had to drive to Brampton? It would be very difficult. So therefore, they weren't geyser, and they let him at least deal with Eden when he's not having hana. Here we're talking about the one person asking somebody else. He's not eliminating all of Klal Yisrael. Therefore, he'll be able to survive such a gzeira because reason, and therefore we have the gzeira. I'm going to show you an example where we don't make a gzeira, even though there's only one person involved. Because what if I said I'm also to you? So the law is hamud or aser. If I said I'm also to you, that means that you may no longer have enough from me, but I'm still allowed to have enough from you. Didn't we say here that once there's an isser one way, we automatically aser the other way as a gzeira? So why is it that over here we aser it both ways, borrowing, selling, and lending money? Why do we say there's a gzeira, but when I aser everything on somebody, we don't make that gzeira? The chiga is reading hacha. Why are we going here? It's not on all activities. It's only on lending money or an object or selling. Why are these more sensitive? Why is there a need to make a gzeira on these things? A typical person wouldn't think, if I'm not allowed to have enough from you, why shouldn't I be able to lend you something? When I'm lending you something, I'm not having any enough from you. So people, their default mindset is there's no reason why that should be also. And therefore, if we allow me, who's also to have enough from you, we allow me to lend you something, it's going to end up becoming a reciprocal, and I'm going to end up borrowing back where there will be a problem. So that's where Chazal saw a need to be geyser because there was a bigger concern. But if I'm saying I'm not allowed to eat your pears, we're not concerned that if you eat my pears, I might eat your pears. So when is there on everything? or on other things that are obviously also there's no gzeira. But on subtle things that someone might mistakenly think would be mutter, like lending money or a keli or buying and selling, there the Mishnah saw fit, Chazal saw fit to make a gzeira. Okay, beautiful. Zok the Heilige Gemara. Zok the Heilige Mishnah weiter. Omar Loi. Here we have somebody who had a temper in one shot in the Rishonim. Omar Loi. Reuben tells Shimon, Hashileni paraska. Could you lend me your ox? Now, most of the times, oxen are used to plow, which is the heaviest type of activity. You need an F-350 diesel in order to provide such thing. You can't just take a little Tesla, it won't do it. Okay, a little Prius won't do it. You need a heavy-duty machine. So I asked someone, could you please lend me your para? Omar Loi, the owner said, I'd love to lend it to you, but it's not available today. So the person who wanted to borrow got upset, and he said, Omar, you're not lending me your para? To hell with you. I'm making a nether. I'm never going to use your para to plow my field. Big threat. But he got angry. You're not lending to me? I'm never going to go borrow it from you. Oh, please let me borrow. Let me lend it to you. No, I'm never borrowing from you again. So that's one shot. That's how the Ran learns. The Meiri learns it's the opposite. I wanted to borrow your para because I wanted to take it for a stroll. And you didn't want to lend it to me because you were afraid I was going to plow with it, which is heavy labor, and that takes its toll on my para. So I'm making a shvuah, I'll never plow with your para, to reinforce that I really wasn't planning to use it for a very difficult activity. So it's not, so the Meiri says, calm down, he didn't blow his top. It's just a simple little thing. He's trying to enforce that he's only borrowing it for a benign reason. But the Ran learns that he got upset. And because of that, he said, I'm never using your para again. I'm not going to use it to plow my field. Yeah. So the oil forever. So Zok Gemara, what did he mean in that nether? So if he would normally plow his own field, so obviously when he said I'm never going to use it, it means I'm not going to use it for what I would otherwise use it for. Therefore, who also he's the only person who's not allowed to use it to plow his field. But but anybody else that he would hire to plow his field would be able to use that para. But if he normally didn't plow, he would have people do it for him. Well, then what he means is not only is it also for him, but it's also for everybody. And there are those who actually change the gears in this Mishnah and say, let's see the Ram. Let's see the Heilige Ram. The borrower or the attempted borrower is saying this to his friend because he blew his top, he was upset because his friend didn't want to lend him his ox. Then who also since he is the one who normally does the charisha, what he intends to prohibit himself from is using this animal to plow his field. But then who? Why? When I said that this parah should be usher, I wasn't referring to me using it in charisha, because I never use it in charisha. I didn't even think that would be relevant. Right? That's not what he was thinking. Ella, what he meant was I'll never have enough from the charisha that this parah would do in my property. He's never allowed to have hana from charisha. I believe I saw someone in the Rishonim who say that it's only going to be usher for everybody else, but not for anybody else. But I don't remember now where I saw it. I believe I did see it. But I don't see it over here now. Oh yeah, here it is. I'm looking at the Rosh. That's where I saw it. The Rosh over here, about 5 lines from the bottom, says im ein dakri lachrish hu mutter v'chalod masurim. So you see the Rosh argues on the Ram and says he's only referring, since normally he doesn't plow, other people plow, that therefore his intent is only to usher other people. But the Ram says his intent is to usher on himself any hana of plowing from this animal, so it would be usher for everybody. Okay, beautiful. This is the only part of the Mishnah that we didn't learn before earlier in the Masechta. The rest of the Mishnah will be very easy for us. And if I'm not mistaken, there's not even Gemara on what we just learned. So basically, the Mishnah just taught us that the psyche of a person is when he's ushering something that he's thinking of. So if he normally plows, then that's what he would mean. And if he normally doesn't plow, if everybody else plows, then that's what he means. So let's see the Gemara about it.
What other purpose does an ox have other than plow? He said, take him for a stroll. Who takes
According
oxen?
to the Meiri's shot that he was going to use it for something else.
Yeah.
You can't milk an ox. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, it says parascha. You're right. So para can mean a cow. I'm not sure. Maybe he was going to take it to the county fair to win the medal. I'm not sure.
Cows don't. You don't plow with cows.
Right. Normally an ox. So I'm assuming it means a plow. I'm assuming it means an ox as well. So I'm not sure what else he could use it for. Maybe he's going to use it to pull a wagon, but pulling a wagon is still not as heavy a job as plowing. Plowing is a severe job.
To show that you're actual.
Okay. Zok Gemara about you. An ox of yesteryear is like a Rolex of today,
Rolex, like
or Lexus, as long as there's a Lex there involved. Okay. Hamuder Hana Mechavered. What happens if Reuben is not allowed to have Hana from Shimon? But Reuben is starving to death and he has no money to buy food. So Shimon wants to help him, but the problem is Reuben's not allowed to have enough from it. Hamuder Hana Mechavered ve'ein lo mayochel. So what's the plan? So what Shimon could do is and the Rishonim stick in Harogaloy. He can go to a Chemini that he has a long-standing relationship with. And he can say, Ish Ploini, Ruvain is Mudar Mimeni. Let's look at the Aleph in the Bach. Ish Ploini Mudar Mimeni. Ish Ploini, Reuben may not have enough for me. Hano. The Eini Yodea Ma'asa. And I don't know what to do. Now, if it's a Chemini Harogaloy, the Chemini will say, okay, I know what the guy's driving at. He obviously wants me to give the guy food, and he'll pay me. And in fact, that's what he can do. The Chemini can give, and then he'll go back and collect. Now, he's not mechuyev to pay. The person who's sponsoring is not mechuyev to pay. If I made you a shliach and I told you give him and I'll pay you, and I'm mechayev myself, then there would be a problem with him having enough. It just is very casual. And that's why it has to be a regular, because nobody else is going to do it for him. If you're a good customer and I know you for a long time, then I'll do it without a proper commitment. Now the Mishnah goes to a bigger chiddush. Here we're talking about we could massage the situation to allow this fellow to have food to eat. But what if he just needed to build his house? He was trying to do an addition. Or Gadra Ligdar, he was trying to build a fence. Or Shadei Liktar, he had a full field ready to be harvested and he doesn't have the resources to do it. So once again, you could sponsor those resources indirectly. You can go to the workers that would normally do this type of work. You can say, Ish Ploini Muder Mimeni Hana. This person is not allowed to have enough of me. But he needs help and he has no resources to get that help. Hint, hint, wink, wink. So they could do the work on behalf of the person who may not have enough. And the sponsor can pay them. Because if I tell them directly, then they're doing my shlichus. And then he's telling them not directly to me. But let's see the round. The round's going to bring out the nuances. Or these two people were walking in the desert and there was nobody around. Oh, there is somebody. There's one guy around. And the fellow has nothing to eat. So if there's a third party there, the person with the food can give it to the third party as a gift. And then that third party can share it with the person who's also bana. But what if just Reuben and Shimon are walking and Reuben has food, Shimon doesn't? And they're walking and there's only them there, and Reuben's not allowed to have enough from Shimon. So what does Shimon do? He'll just put his food on a rock, or on a gate, and he can announce, Hare Hein Muvkorin Lachol Mishyachvot. Hefker Lakoil. Not his anymore. And then and then the person who's also not can take it because he's not benefiting from his friend. He's taking from him. I'm sorry. You could. That would work. Of course, that would work. But Rabbi Yosy holds being mafker doesn't work. So that's why it's not such a simple solution because Rabbi Yosy holds it doesn't work. But if I say you're not allowed to have enough of me and I'm mafker, it'll be mutter to you. But who said I'm interested in being mafker? Like, just be mafker al Yechosim. Who wants to be mafker al Yechosim? If you want to give him something, yeah. If a person is prepared to do that, it would work, right? That's what the Gemara is saying over here. So let's see the Heilig Rav. Zok the Heilig Rav. Heilig Eitzel Chamani Aragal Eslai. Rabucha Kamashmalan. The Chiddush is the Avagav the Ragal Eslai. Umakifei Tadir. Even though we have a relationship, so it's obvious what I mean. It's obvious that I'm instructing you to feed this fellow on my behalf. Still, we don't say that the store owner is doing the shlichus of Shimon. And especially if he didn't even say it to a specific person, he just said, whoever feeds Reuben who's starving, you won't lose. There's Shari Kadisha Perkamadir, because that's even less direct. And then
he's not thinking about because Shimon was the one that was Madam Lewis. So he sees that he does have to, but no,
Uvo and I told me that Zok Imratza Kamer. That means that if the person wants, he can pay the Chavani, but he's not obliged to pay the Chavani. V'loimar, the Avagav de Lebesoif Noitel Mizeh, even though at the end of the day the Chavani will end up getting paid from Shimon, V'da'atayu b'hachi, and that's his intent when he gave food to Reuben, he only gave it because he assumed he was getting paid from Shimon. Still lav shlichusei ka'avin. That's not called doing shlichus. So they have a shliach ala ba'omer kol hashemei koili yizon. You have to instruct somebody to do it. I never instructed. I just mentioned that this guy needs help. Therefore, it's not a shlichus kedisa b'mader. Don't tell me the chikatani ubav v'noit l'muzav edina kamer. Don't tell me pshat in the Mishnah that the Chavani has a legal right to extract the money from Shimon. If he's mechuyev to pay, alma shluchus ekavit. So by definition, that means there's a shlichus. And now he's being mahana. He's being mahana Reuben. But also that would be usher. So it has to be voluntarily. This is a little bit of a bigger chiddush than the case of the Chavani. Because Bereisha Ashmiyan, the tzarech mazayna shari, to feed somebody shouldn't starve to death. The Seva Kamash Malon, the Afilu tzarech binyan beisayatiri, even to help him build his house, which is not as important to his survival. Nois in la'achim mishamatana, the labasar achi, lo mishanimine, ela mimiskabel matana. If the third party gives Reuben food, Reuben is having enough from the third party, not from Shimon. The lav mididei misani, because he's not having enough from me, ela Hefker. So this is the case where there was no one around, and they just put it down on the stone and they said it's Hefker. Rabbi Yosy, Rabbi Gemara, Mefarish Taima, why in the world would Rabbi Yosy hold? It doesn't work. It's Hefker. Zok Tehillah Gemara, Bam Shel Chiddush. Rabbi Yochanan, my time is Rabbi Yosy. What is this for, Rabbi Yosy? Because Sober Hefker Kimatana. He holds when you're mafker something, and then someone else takes it. It's as if you gave it to them. Ma matana ada osim rishus noisin l'shus makabel. Just like when you're giving a gift, it remains in your rishus until the person takes it. Af Hefker, so too when you're mafker something, ada osim rishus zoicha. Until the person who picks it out of Hefker takes it, it's still considered that it belongs to the person who was mafker. We always assume that Hefker means you're severing your ties with it. Zok Rabbi Yochanan, maybe Rabbi Yosy argues. And the old Hefker doesn't mean you're severing your ties. You're just meaning it's anyone can come take it. But come to Chosh, when this person is taking it, he's taking it directly from you. This theory will not survive. Don't worry. Masav Baba. So let's just see what it says over here in the Ran. Ma matana adasha b'shus noishim l'shus makabel shema marini noishim matana zu leploini yachalachta boy atshigil li'adashal makabel. Right. Let's say you say I'm giving this gift to Moshe. You could change your mind until Moshe actually is crying it. Af Hefker adasha l'shus zoicha she'eni yatsa b'shus bailim at sheyiska b'yacher. It remains in rishus bailim until somebody else takes it. The bailim heder, and if you want to be choizer from your Hefker motzi hadar hilchach kitzachi b'mudar mimader kamasani. Therefore, when the mudar takes it, he's taking it directly from the mother. So Zoktim or Masav Baba. V'Allah noitel v'oichel. That's what it says in our Mishnah. V'Allah noitel v'oichel. Rav Yosy oiser. But the Brisa adds more information. Amar Rabbi Yosy, Amosai, when do I say that this doesn't work? Is Bisman Shenodra Kodim Hefker. First, I said you may not have a no for me, and then I was mafkir, so I'm sort of being mafkir to try to fix the problem. Avo, but what would be the halacha if what if he was mafkir first and then he made another hareza mutter? Now the problem is, if the fact is that it belongs to me the whole time, what's the difference if I was mafkir first or mafkir later? Regardless, it still belongs to me. So, if you're going to tell me that until the person is koined from Hefker, it belongs to the person who was mafkerit, Mali nidri koidem lefkere, Mali efkere koidem ledidre. What's the difference? What came first? Either way, the person getting it is getting it directly from me, and he's not allowed to get it directly from me. Zok to Gemara, who most of level was Shanilach. He asked the kasha and he answered. And in fact, even though he's, no, Hefker means that it's in the status or anybody who wants to come take it from my reshus can take it. Anybody's permission, but until they take it, it's mine. That's right. So then, what's the difference? What came first? The Gemara who of the Mushan law call hanoider ein daitoi al masha Hefker. You're right. Technically, he's taking it directly from me. But if I was mafker at first, and then they made another, when I made another, I didn't have in mind to answer on him that I was already mafker, because my psyche is that's not on my reshus. I was answering only things that I wasn't mafker. But since I was mafker, you don't like the chat, don't worry, the Gemara is going to pull out, because now the Gemara is still maintaining that Rabbi Yosy holds that when it's Hefker, it's still mine. It's just a carve out that once I'm mafker, when I made another, I didn't mean to include that. It's that's a psyche. So let's see the round. Call note and daiter elo masha Hefker. Ein nechanami. The motzi hadu be dilehavi. You actually could be chayzer. We have also leila oyster davar shehefker beferish chal nidre. And if he says no, I want this to be included in my nether, it would be chal. And even though he was mafkir first, that person can't take it. Allah hach ayitaima mishum dechol oyster nechosov stam ein daiter masha Hefker. When someone says when nechosov are osir, he's not thinking of things that he was already mafkir. He's pulled himself away. Matzav Rabba. So I cannot learn the Gemara inside because once again the Ran changes the Gersa. So let's learn the Ran here. The halach is Sheni Zachar l'shtabet b'rishon. Somebody had two avodim. We know Mashakana Evet Kana Rabbi. And someone said, part of my nechasim, he didn't specify which part. Part of my nechasim should go to the first Evet. And then all of my nechasim should go to my second Evet. So the halacha is the second Evet, not only does the first Evet not koina anything, but the second Evet is koina the first Evet. Zok Teran, Braisahi B'Tesefta the Bava Basra. This is a Braisa Bava Basra. V'Haki Perushan, Mishi Yesh Leishnei Avodim. If someone has two servants, V'Nosan Miktas Nechosav L'Rishon. First he gave part of his Nechosim to Evet A. The Achach Nosan all of his Nechosim L'Sheni. So the halach is Loi Kana Rishon. The Rishon doesn't get anything at all. Why is that? Because since I only gave Miktas Nechosim to the Rishon, and I didn't specify which I'm giving and which I'm not giving, Dilma Begufei Shire. Maybe I didn't totally free the Eved Rishon, because maybe I'm retaining ownership, because I'm only giving Miktas. I'm retaining some ownership in the Eved Rishon. Once the Eved Rishon didn't kind himself, no matter what else I gave him, it's automatically mine, because Machakana Eved Kana Bailoi. So therefore, the Abda, the Kani, Nichsehu, because anything that the Eved is kind it's mine. It's mine. The Eved is mine. The Chasam. So anything the Eved owns is mine. Avol Sheni, but the second Eved, where there was no shear, he gave the full assets to the Sheni. Zacha ba'atzmai. Not only is he kind himself, uven nechasim, he's also zoiche in all of the nechasim of his adain. One of the nechasim of the adain is the Eved Rishon. The zachanami lishtabet b'rishon the legabei lakeshiyura. There was nothing held back in the matana that the other gave Eved, the second Eved. The amrit the indaita masha Hefker. If you're going to say that when someone makes a transaction, he doesn't mean to include something that he already gave away. Hachanami indaita masha nasan far. Whether or not his giving to the first is good or not is irrelevant. The fact is, once in my mind I've separated myself from it and I gave it to the Eved Rishon, So when I made the gift to the Evet Sheni, I obviously wouldn't have included that. If you're going to say I don't include Hefker because it's already pushed out, it's not in my domain. I'm not thinking about it anymore. So why should this be any different? So that's why the Gemara does not like this svara. Mati didn't even like this svara.
It's not, but it's essentially over that, because here, if you got it back right away, because so it's not, the
But in his mind, he gave it away. You're telling me, but it didn't work. Yeah, so the Ran holds and the Gemara holds that it doesn't matter if it technically worked or not, just like by Hefker, it technically is. But when a person says something, is generally only referring to things that belong to him, that he thinks belong to him.
This part shouldn't go to.
That's right. Because in his mind, he was only giving Evet Sheni what he didn't give to the Evet. El Amarava, Zokt Rava, forget the whole thing with Hefker. I knew time with Rabbi Yosy, Gzeir Mishun Matas Beis Chayrain. Rabbi Yosy holds Avada, if you're mafka something, it's Hefker right away. So how come it doesn't work? It's all of a Gzeira. And the Matas Beis Chayrain we're going to learn soon. And the story was as follows. It's on Mem Hey, I think. The story was as follows. A fellow made chasana, and if I'm not mistaken, his father was also to have an offer, and he wanted his father to come to the chasana. So he made an announcement. I'm mafkir everything in this chasana, everything. I'm being mafkir, but I'm not really being mafkir. I don't want anybody to take the salt shakers and put it in their pockets and go home. I'm only being mafkir because I want my father to be able to come. So it was a fraud. It was a fraud Hefker on its face. But someone did that. So because of that, we no longer allow Hefker to be used as a way to be matar and heather. So therefore, now Rabbi Yosef makes perfect sense. Why did Rabbi Yosef answer? Because if someone's mafker it, we're always afraid that it's not a real Hefker, it's a fraudulent Hefker just to be able to be matar. So Mati asked, how come you can always be mafker? Rabbi Yosef is a good svara, because my guy might just be being mafker it as a fraud. Let's see the round. Of course, Rabbi Yosy holds once you're mafker it, technically it's not yours anymore, and anybody who's using it is not having enough from you. The Michi Avkare Nafkale Meshusei. Since it's clear to us, the Loy Avkare Ela Kadesh Yiskra Mudar, the only reason why I made a Hefker is to circumvent another, if we allow this to work, then we might be matter even when he spoke out that this is a completely fraudulent hektish. The Maisa de Beis Chorin, like the story of Beis Chorin, the Tnan Bepirkin de la Kamon that we learned earlier, where the guy says, "I'm only being mafkir so my father can eat there." So it was fraud on its face. The Einan lefanecha elo kedei sheyavei abba b'yoichel imanu. He said the fair, I'm only being mafkir so my father can join us. If he made another before he was mafkir, it's usher, because they're dikul mixer. If he made a hefker first, clearly that's not a fraudulent hefker. That's clearly a hefker that had nothing to do with the nether. That's a sincere hefker, and therefore shari, it's going to be mutter. Okay, so this is really where I wanted to get up to today. But now we can learn a very interesting stickle. We'll get started on tomorrow's block. I don't want to get too far ahead because there's not a lot of beef over here. We have very small blood there, but let's learn another couple of lines. We have a couple of minutes.
The same math that happened in Eichel. It says that I mentioned gestorben. Und dann sehen wir bei Text, gesagt, der alles von meinem Evetchitz eingegangen. So the Evetchitz took care of it. I want you.
So he's a scam artist. Tanya, we
He
look.
was a smart fellow at the
Hamafker esadeyu. If someone is mafker his field, so the halach is kol shloisha yomim yochel achshaboy. If you're mafker a field, you have a 3-day cooling off period. See, we think now there's this consumer protection laws. In those days also, there was a consumer protection law. If you mafker your field, you have 3 days to be choser. You can't velach, but when 3 days comes, en yochel achshaboy. However, what happens if someone said, and this is relevant if it's relevant if you saw this after like if you're mechuyev to take meisers. But Omar to hey saw the zoom of keres l'yoyim echad l'shabbos echad l'chodesh echad l'shana echad l'shavua echad. If I said my object is hefker for 3 days, you put a time limit on how long your thing is hefker for. So then actually zachaba, if nobody was kainit, no one took it out of the hefker, beinu beinacher yachal achsavai, you could continue to be chayzer. Once someone is cutting it out of the hefker, beinu beinacher ein yachal achshabu. So that is the brayse. So let's just have a look at the run, and then we'll stop. Zok, they look around. Amavker esodeyu kol gimel yom mitzarech lachsaboy. Now, the words we read so far is like Chinese. It makes no sense. So that's why there's a long run to help us make heads or tails out of it. So Reiza Shemua Zu, I saw this shtickle shalonis bar yafa b'divrei Rishonim zal. L'fi ani daiti. I looked at all the Rishonim. I didn't feel they adequately explained it. Therefore, b'kach nearly b'pirusha. So the Ran's almost excusing himself for this long run. I'm only going to a lengthy explanation because I see there's a need for it. Zok the Ran, kol shloishi yomim yochel achshaboy. When you mafker a field for 3 days, you come back out. Mikan velech ein yochel achshaboy. Midekamaflik b'seifa. Since the second half of the brayso that we read on Amud Aleph, the Omar tehei sadu mufkeres l'yoyim echad bein zocha l'loy zocha. In the second case, the brayso made a distinction if someone was koined from the hefker or not. The katani sha'at shaloy zocha yochel achshaboy u'mishazocha ein yochel achshaboy. Right? The brayso on Amud Aleph said it depends. It's only irrevocable if someone was already koined from the hefker. But if no one was koined from the hefker, I'm sorry. No, that's not talking about 3 days. No, there's no nether here. Who's talking about nether? This is a hefker.
I'm saying it was not good. So
He's not good for a week. So how 3 days? Let's put the 3 days out.
for a week.
So if someone was kind he gets to keep it. Yeah, within that week. And if not, that's correct. That's correct. So since only in the ratio was maflik, but only in the sefer made that distinction. In the sefer not, it's in the ratio not. It's a mashma in the ratio. Even if I made it hefker and you took it within 3 days, even after you took it, I could reverse it because only the sefer says that once someone was zoich, it's irreversible. But in the ratio, it's mashma that even if someone took it, it's reversible. For 3 days you can be chazor no matter what, even if someone took it. Shemami, no, you see from here that haki ketani kol gil milyamim yochel lachzeboy me'efkerei va'afilu zocha achar koidim chazorosay loikanim. Even if someone came within 3 days and was zoicha from hefker, I can change my mind and reverse it. Okay, we'll stop here, and of course we need to know why. How does that work? How in the world does that work? That for 3 days that can be chazor. Of course, there's the rabbonans, but that's what
it
the
was
Mishnah
very
says.
good that we got,
24 hours.
That's right. But I wish I had 3 days.